You are listening to Bound by Death Sorcerer, written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 28, The Price of Ascension. Professor Jacob. I don't exactly have a choice, do I? Jacob gave the young man, Tyler, a wry smile. Up until this point, the professor had been all professional, tight-lipped smiles, clasped hands, perfect posture, the works. But by this point, they had gotten through the necessary formalities. He could allow a little candor to shine through. But not too much. If this were to work, he needed Tyler's trust. Trust meant a degree of openness and honesty. But he could just as easily go too far that way, revealing more than was actually necessary. If Tyler betrayed the professor's interests, that would turn from unnecessity to risk. Risk was unacceptable. Of course, the young man wouldn't be particularly hard to kill. On the other hand, that would still reflect poorly on Jacob, and who knew how much damage the slippery thief could cause in the meantime. He had eluded even Lord Harley, after all. Slipped right out from under his nose. For now. Shaking his hand in a SOSO sort of gesture, Jacob considered precisely how to address the young man's question. The question wasn't literal, obviously. It was more of a statement, and the professor could simply confirm it while simultaneously placating Tyler's surface-level fears. However, the professor understood that there were all kinds of other questions buried in subtext. Perhaps it would do him well to address just a few. Your service is completely voluntary. The Empire will not coerce you into a position from which you would be forced to take actions which are against your own will. Tyler furrowed his eyebrows slightly. Jacob didn't think his words had been particularly subtle, but then again, a street rat wasn't likely to be nearly so accustomed to the language of higher circles. But if I don't accept the position, I'm pretty much fudged, Tyler said. The professor remained perfectly neutral. Had they not already been over this? Your personal circumstances are not the Empire's concern in this context, Jacob reiterated. Tyler chewed his lip, then seemed about to speak again. Jacob suppressed the urge to groan. Is he really going to state the obvious out loud? As Jacob suppressed even those thoughts of irritation, the young man fell silent, nodding. It seemed clear that Tyler understood. He had no real choice but to take the professor's offer, but the responsibility would be completely his own. Fortunately, he had the tact not to say that. Good. He's learning. Maybe he won't be terrible at this. That would certainly be nice, if it came to pass. If Tyler kept up like he had so far, perhaps he could even be a real officer one day. If he survives his first week in the blackguard, that is. Tyler groaned, holding his head in his hands. Jacob's smile almost faltered, but didn't, of course. Well, maybe not. The young man was still wearing nothing but a towel and his crude cloak. I accept. The professor brightened his smile. That's great to hear. However, I am just the messenger. He paused as he stood up, and the young man cautiously rose to his feet as well. I will escort you from here. Arthur. O great Emperor, champion of humanity, vessel of divinity, hand of creation, supreme arbiter of justice, what meager scraps of wisdom do you wish to claim from this wicked and lowly necromancer, slave of evil, blinded by ignorance? Shut up. Arthur fell silent, indulging in a little peek at the young emperor from where he pitifully groveled upon the ruby-encrusted onyx dais. The young man was glowering down at him, trying quite hard to maintain his aura of regal dignity. Of course, the corners of his mouth twitched just slightly, hinting at a tightly contained boyish smile. And quit the groveling. I'm not so proud as to be blind to your obvious mockery, old man. With a sigh, the lich rose to his full height, easily towering above his young master. You're no fun. The Emperor rolled his emerald eyes. It is not my mandate to be fun, old man. Arthur huffed. It said a lot that the Emperor didn't make any effort to conceal such an immature gesture. A little about the young man, but mostly about the Lich. Was he losing his touch? It didn't seem quite so long ago that he had struck fear into the hearts of the most seasoned warriors, and here this little upstart sovereign wasn't quite rising to his bait. For shame. Right. So really, why did you summon me? Do you want me to go take care of Lord Harley or something? I've been itching for a good showdown, you know, the hero types are fun but they're all the same. Fighting other villains can be quite refreshing. Arthur paused. I like his mannerisms. The necromancer's current master stared at him blankly. No. You're not strong enough. Arthur blinked. What? Sighing, the Emperor turned his back and strode towards the balcony at the rear of the chamber. Arthur followed, trailing just behind and to the side of the young man. There were no guards. A boy like Magnus Vistani had no need for such frivolities. Filling the throne room with guards would be more of a liability than anything. I'll grant that you might be able to take him one-on-one, the Emperor admitted, but not without unacceptable collateral. Arthur frowned. You're worried about the citizenry? That's a change. Not casualties, you moron, collateral. Magnus glared at the Lich. To me. Arthur inclined his head slightly. Striding forward, the young Emperor appraised his city. I need you to keep things under control. Arthur joined him, squinting into the hazy mid-morning glare. Magnus furrowed his brow as he stared into the distance. Surely you've learned you can't just murder your way out of everything by now. The necromancer shrugged. Maybe? Anyway. I need you to make sure that the kid doesn't just, for once, Magnus fumbled with his words. Straight up die? We can't have that. There's no guarantee the fragment will bond so readily again. Right. You want the murderous Lich to make sure someone doesn't die, Arthur surmised. No problem, boss. His young master snorted derisively. Have you no concern for your own son? Arthur shrugged. A passing interest. He shrugged. I mean, are you not the one who assassinated his own father? Magnus scoffed as he turned back to the throne room. Touché. Rocky. Again. Rocky-eyed Lord Harley as she adjusted her grip on her knives. As far as she was aware, the man wasn't even using any ability of his receptor, not during the fight, at least. And yet she had yet to land a single scratch on him, and he wasn't even sweating under his ridiculous suit. She was allowed to use her new receptor, of course, but it didn't matter. Her captor was just too good. She had gained power, on his behalf, for sure, but it didn't matter. Lord Harley was just more skilled. Flicking her eyes to the side, she caught James' look. You've got this, his eyes tried to say, but it was a lie. She absolutely didn't, and her brother knew it. Rocky idly wondered what had happened to her older two siblings. Had Lord Harley captured them as well? Were they dead? In hiding? She didn't know, and she brushed those thoughts aside. Now was not the time. Lord Harley sighed. I said again. Channeling her anger, Rocky dashed forward. Leaping over the card table in the middle of the empty casino, she vaulted through the air. As she spun, she aimed one knife for her captor's throat while loosening her grip on the other. At the last moment, she threw the second knife. Her aim was true, but her target wasn't static. He caught the knife, and before she could call it back to her inventory, she was already impaled through the eye. He grabbed her other wrist. And then the knife twisted. Rocky's mind turned black. And then she was back on the other side of the table, a pale golden light suffusing her. Again. He joined an organized crime ring, stole a legendary receptor from a psychopathic lunatic, completed an arguably successful dungeon delve, and now he had joined a shadow organization of the Empire he hadn't even known existed. Tyler flopped onto his new bed with all the grace of a tottering drunkard. At least the blackguard had been kind enough to provide him with new living arrangements. Emily as well, though hers were ostensibly provided by Professor Jacob. She wasn't allowed to know about the blackguard. And while it hurt, Tyler didn't break his oath and explain it all to her. Not because he trusted them more than his sister. No, not at all. He just hoped that what she didn't know couldn't hurt her. Who would have expected that they didn't kill all the monsters, they just leashed them? Not Tyler, that was for sure. Perhaps that just made him naive. It didn't matter, not at the moment. All that mattered was that Emily and Kenny were, temporarily, safe, and that he now had a real shot at saving Eliza, Rocky, and James. If they're still alive. While Tyler didn't fully understand all of the powers at play yet, he now recognized that the Empire was strained, poised to be devoured by one of any number of factions. The Emperor himself was just one of them. Like it or not, Tyler was part of that faction now. After resting for several moments, Tyler sat up. He desperately needed a shower. But first, he summoned his book. Flipping to a random page near the middle, Tyler traced his finger down the central fold. I have several questions. Ink swirled. Hello, Tyler. Tyler grinned back at the entity that was now somehow inextricably linked to his own soul. He had been thrown into a den of monsters, yes. But he had a power of his own, an opportunity to fight back. He remembered back to just several days ago, when he first entered the casino with Lord Harold. I'm not going to waste it. The Empire was full of monsters. Tyler would be one of them.
Akumah Audiobooks.